All right, we are recording to the cloud. So with that being said, you are able to go back to view this live session under the web meetings. And always, if you have any questions, you can shoot your questions over to me in the chat. And if it's something important, you can definitely unmute yourself and let me know, okay? So for the course project, you could choose, we already know that we are in week 5. So basically we are choosing an event, something that is important to you, and we are creating multiple items. Now that we are in week 5, we are focusing on creating a video ad. So we are going to market everything that we are creating from week 1 all the way through week 6. And then week 7, we'll discuss on how to combine everything, put it into a portfolio, and also pitch it to each other in our live session. So what is Adobe Premiere Pro? And please let me know if I'm going too fast for you, because I can definitely slow it down. What is Adobe Premiere Pro? So as always, I would love to know what your experience is in Adobe Premiere Pro. You can drop that in the chat directly to me. 1, stating that you're a beginner, and 5, stating that you're a pro. All right, so everyone is saying that they're a beginner, and that is totally fine. So you will notice that you'll see some tools that is similar to some of the programs that we previously explored in Adobe applications. So let's go ahead and overview Adobe Premiere Pro. So this week we will talk about continuity and the principles of time-based media, animation, and film. You'll be introduced to Adobe Premiere Pro, which is Adobe's timeline-based video editing application. Premiere Pro looks quite different from some of the Adobe applications like Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign. However, it does have some tools that you've seen in other programs. So this week, you will produce and edit a short video ad to promote your event. Here are some objectives that we're going to go over for the time-based media. We're going to create a timeline-based project using Adobe Premiere Pro. We're going to import footage, audio, and images. I'm also going to show you how to create some objects, layers, and text effects. We're also going to extract and remove objects from layers, and also use tools to create animated objects and effects. So when do you use Adobe Premiere Pro? You would use Adobe Premiere Pro when you're doing video editing, recording, also creating animation intros and outros. These are sometimes called bumpers when you're creating YouTube. So you've probably seen some intros and outros before. Adding lower thirds and titles for videos, adding stylish visual effects and transitions, color correction and color grading, as well as audio mixing and enhanced editing. So here is the typical workflow of Adobe Premiere Pro. And you'll also see this when you're going in to create your video ad yourself. So the first step would be importing your footage. Second step is sequencing and doing some rough cuts. The third step is typically that you'll do a playback just to see if everything is lining up like you would like. The fourth step is transitions, effects, and titles. The fifth step, sometimes this can be the second step for some people, which is adding your sound effects and your music. And then last but not least is exporting your files, which is considered encoding and rendering your video footage. So when you open Adobe Premiere Pro, you'll see these 4 panels, which is considered your workspaces. And you'll have your source monitor, which is going to play back your individual clips. You'll have your program monitor, which basically plays back the entire sequence that you're working on within your timeline. You'll have at your project panel, this is where you'll place all of your project media files from your video clips, your audio files, your graphics, your still images. And then you'll also have your timeline panel. This is the panel that you're going to work in And you'll also see everything that you're working in from your timeline panel reflect into your program monitor, and your timeline panel is basically showing you unlimited visuals and audio tracks. So you're going to drag a lot of you're going to import your footage into the project panel. And then once you import your footage into your project panel, you can drag it over into your timeline panel. And then once you drag everything over into your timeline panel, you'll see it play within your program monitor. So I'm just going to show you a video that does a deep overview of your panel workspaces. Please let me know if you can hear it. Go ahead.
And get started. Opening up Premiere Pro for the first time, it can definitely feel like there's a lot going on, but having these different windows or panels and the customization it allows is one of the most useful things to get familiar with. With Premiere Pro open, you'll notice these different windows, each with a different specific purpose. These are called panels. You can find the name of each panel in the top left corner of each of them. You have different options for the layout of these panels depending on your preference and also which stage of editing you're at. These are called Workspaces. And later on, once you're more familiar with the different panels, you can even customize your own to suit your own editing workflow. To start with, I'm going to select the editing workspace. This workspace will clearly show the 4 panels I'm going to walk through: project panel, source and program monitor panels, and also the timeline panel. When editing or building your video sequence, these 4 are the most important panels to be viewing. If at any stage you can't see a particular panel you require, you can come up to Window and make sure that panel is ticked or selected on this list. You can also change your workspace by coming up to Window and Workspaces. To increase or decrease the size of any of your panels, you can simply come to the edge of the panel and drag it out smaller or larger. You can even move this around to different parts of the screen, depending on where you want to view each panel. The first panel you want to get familiar with is the project panel. This is where you can import, locate, organize, and preview all your clips and media. Once you've imported your clips, there's a few different ways you can view them within the project panel. If you come down to the bottom of this panel, you can select List View, Icon View, or Freeform View. List View will be most useful when you require more info on your clips. Here you can easily see things like the frame rate and the resolution of each of your clips, and use the headings to organize them based on this info. Simply by clicking on these headings, it will arrange them by that heading. The icon view will give you a much better visual of your clips as it displays the thumbnails. Here you can also easily scrub through them by hovering over your clips. This feature is called Hover Scrub, or by single clicking on any of your clips, you will see displayed this playhead, which you can also scroll through to preview your clips. The next important panels are the source and program monitor panels. Now, the source monitor and program monitor are the panels you use to watch your clips. On the top left, you use the source monitor to preview your clips before inserting them into a sequence. To the right is your program monitor. This is where you will play and preview your working timeline sequence. So let's start with the source monitor for previewing all your clips. So make sure you have this selected. To play and pause playback, you can use these playback controls, or you can simply use the shortcut spacebar. You can also quickly drag or scrub through a clip by grabbing this blue playhead and scrolling back and forth to preview your clip. If you double click on any clip down in the project panel, it will automatically open this into the source monitor ready for preview. Here you can also mark in or mark out your clips. This is essentially where you want each clip to begin and end. Use the mark in and mark out buttons to select a specific part of the clip you want to add to the sequence. A simple shortcut for this is I to cut in or O to cut out. Once you cut your clip, you can drag it over to the timeline and it will play back from those mark in and mark out points that you've selected. Over to the right is the program monitor. Here it will play your sequence from the timeline. The program monitor playhead is synchronized with the playhead in the timeline panel. As you can see, if I scrub across, you will see the timeline moves with the program monitor. This is where you can preview your project video as it takes shape. Here, if you've got your timeline selected, you can also use the spacebar to play and pause the sequence. Next up is the timeline panel. This is where your project comes to life. Here you will build your sequence, arrange clips, and make simple audio adjustments. I've added a few video clips and one music track to my timeline here. You can see it plays back from left to right, and wherever this blue playhead is, this will play back above in the program monitor as well. Your video and audio tracks will be separated with the video tracks above and audio below, and you can move these up or down to create separate tracks. With video clips in a stack like this, whichever clip is above or on top will show in front of any clips below it. Think of these like layers. You can also increase the size of any of your tracks on the timeline. This will give you a closer look at any effects, audio levels, and also show a thumbnail of any of your video clips. You can turn off the preview of any of these tracks by clicking on this eyeball icon over to the left. In the same way, you can mute an audio track by hitting the M icon on any of your audio tracks. To work and edit individual clips, make sure you have the right clip selected. There are also different tools for working with your timeline. The most basic is the selection tool. Chances are, if something you're unsure about is happening, you've probably accidentally gone off the selector tool. You can simply come back to this at any time by hitting the shortcut V to come back to your selection tool. So that was a basic rundown of some of the most important panels inside Premiere Pro.
So I have a question. Did you guys have any trouble hearing that video? Or was it okay for you? It's good? Okay. All right. So that is just an overview of what the panels workspace looks like. You'll get used to seeing that because that's the first screen that you'll see when you open up the Adobe Premiere Pro. And I'm just going to go over some of the tools that you'll use in Adobe Premiere Pro. Some of these are quite similar and then some are new. So you'll have the selection tool here. Then you have your track forward tool, your track backward tool, and I have a video that's going to show next with a more detail. You'll have your ripple edit tool, your rolling edit tool, your rate stretch, your razor tool, split tool, slide tool, pen, hand, and zoom. The ones that I typically use often are the selection as well as the razor tool and also the pen tool. Hand tool is also great as well. And of course, if you need to zoom in and zoom out, you can definitely use the zoom tool. So here's a video that's going to give you a little bit more in depth of the toolbar. And you're going to also see that, again, some of these tools may look different, but they kind of perform similar to some that you'll see in other Adobe applications.
Today is going to be an easy one, guys, but it's an important one. I'm going to explain every tool from the toolbar. And as a beginner, you often struggle with finding the right tools to perform certain actions while editing. And once you finally find some of those tools to edit, you don't know what to do with them. Because who knows straight away what a ripple edit tool does, or a track select forward tool? Well, we didn't either, and that's why we are explaining all of these tools for you. We're starting out easy. The selection tool. Well, this one is quite self-explanatory. With this tool, you can select everything in your timeline, and it's basically the main tool you will be using during an edit. So definitely remember the short key V to select this tool. The second tool is the track select forward tool, and this is your multi-select tool. If you hover with the cursor in your timeline, you will see these stacked arrows, indicating that you are using the tool. If you now click, you will select every clip right of your cursor, and this means literally everything, video and audio. However, you can also use the select backward tool to select everything left of your cursor. Now, one extra bonus for this tool, if you hold down the shift key while operating this tool, you can now select everything on one single track and not the entire sequence anymore. Also, to indicate this, the stacked arrow cursor becomes a single arrow. The next tool is the ripple edit tool, a super handy tool to make your editing workflow way faster. Now, with this tool, you can trim, or in other words, shorten your clip. But while doing that, the rest of the clips in your timeline will ripple towards your edit, meaning that Premiere Pro will automatically close the gap you just created between the two clips. However, this also works when making your selected clips longer. Then Premiere Pro will push the clips further in your timeline, preventing unwanted cutoff clips. Now, underneath the ripple edit tool, we have two more tools hiding out, and one of them is the rolling edit tool. Now, this one is a little bit similar to the ripple edit tool. However, instead of trimming a clip and moving the rest of the timeline, Now move the edit or cut either forwards or backwards in sequence, making one clip longer and the other one shorter. And then the last tool in our drop-down is the Erase Stretch tool. With this tool, you can speed up or slow down clips in your timeline. When doing this, the in and out points of your clips will stay the same, only the length of your clip will be adjusted. We are on a roll, guys, but do you know who's also on a roll? You and your editing skills. But if you want to make them even better, I would definitely recommend our Skillshare course, Premiere Pro for Beginners. Not only is one of our...
Okay, so with your toolbar, it is important to understand that you are able to use some of these tools and do a lot of different effects, which is really good. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward. He talks about something different, so I'm going to fast forward to the razor tool.
Now let's continue with the razor tool. With this fundamental tool, you can simply make edits or cuts in your clips. Easy as that. But if you hold the Shift key while using this tool, you will cut clips across all tracks, again speeding up your editing workflow. On to the next tool, which is the Slip tool. And this tool lets you slip the in and out points of a clip's source without adjusting it in the timeline. So your clip actually stays the same length, but you are moving the in and out points in the source file, giving you a different start and end. Also, while using this tool, you will be given a live preview of your new in and out points in the program monitor. Tool number 8 is the Slide tool. This tool is similar to the Slip tool. This time, you are sliding a clip on the timeline. The in and out point of the selected clip will remain the same, but the surrounding clips are adjusted. They become longer or shorter, and again, we get a live preview in our program monitor, showing us what we are doing. Number 9 on our list is the Pen tool. This one has multiple functions. First one is creating custom graphics. With the tool selected, you can just click in your program monitor and create a custom graphics clip. But you can also use the Pen tool to adjust existing graphics. Now, besides creating graphics, you can also use the Pen tool for keyframing certain attributes of the clip. When your track is high enough, you're able to see this line art. If you can't see it, then hold Alt while scrolling over the track, or just drag the track height up. By default, this is the opacity of your clip. Now, with the Pen tool, we can easily keyframe the opacity without going to the effects controls panel. However, this line doesn't always stand for the clip's opacity. When we right-click on the Effects button, we can choose the attribute the line stands for. For example, time remapping. We can now use the Pen tool to start speed ramping. Next, we have the Rectangle and Ellipse tool. And with these, we can create rectangles and ellipse graphics. Seems logical. Number 12, another basic tool called the Hand tool. This tool will simply allow you to navigate forward or backwards on your timeline. This, of course, can also be done with scrolling, but the Hand tool can be a little bit more precise. Next up is the Zoom tool. And well, this lets you zoom in, of course, obviously. It doesn't always have to be rocket science, of course. Now, you can also hold the Alt key if you want to zoom out. Then the last tool is the Text tool. Once again, this is quite self-explanatory. With this, you can create text in your program monitor. Just click and type. Nothing more, nothing less. And if you want, there is also a vertical type tool to again place text, but this time vertical, of course. And those were all the tools in the toolbar. I hope.
So that's just an overview. Now, I am going to go in depth on some of the tools that he mentioned in this video, because you will use some of these tools, especially like the text tool, to add some text to your video ad. So I want to go into another section of this session and break down how you import your video and your footage into Adobe Premiere Pro.
Waste of time, so let's go. My absolute favorite way. Right here, I got my test project. Take my footage folder, drop it right in. Second way is to double click right here. Import wherever your footage is at. You can right click, import. You can hit the file, import. And you can also go down into the media browser or wherever your media browser is at. Drop it in. And the very last tip, just hit Control-I on PC or Command-I on Mac. thumbs up, and subscribe.
So with Adobe Premiere Pro, you can change the layout of your workspaces. So you can decide if you want to have your project panel at the top, the timeline at the top. You can move all of your workspaces around to where it's comfortable for you. A lot of times people just like to keep it at the default settings because it's just a little bit easier. But again, you can go ahead if you feel comfortable moving things around, you can definitely do that. And so basically he was showing you how you can drop your video and your audio, and your images will all go into that project panel. And so you'll see here, this is quite similar when importing your audio files, just like if you were to import your video footage.
Okay, to get started, I just added a video clip to my timeline that I'd like to add some background music to. So let's go over to the project panel and double click inside to open up the import pop-up. In here, find the music you're looking for and click open. Okay, now let's drag our audio clip onto a track below our video clip on the timeline. And I'm just going to use the razor tool to cut off the end of my audio clip so that my music ends when my video does. One thing you might want to do to make editing your video easier is to click this little wrench up here and select Expand All Tracks, which will enlarge your audio. Now, if you want to fade your music, go over to the Effects panel. Then double-click Audio Transition to open it up and open up Crossfade. To fade your music in, drag the exponential fade to the very beginning of your audio clip. And to fade it out, just drag the exponential fade to the very end of your audio clip. Finally, if you want to change the volume of your music, simply drag the line in the middle of your audio track up or down. If you're not working with expanded audio, you can also change the volume by selecting your audio clip and going over to Effect Controls. Under Volume, drag the levels value to the left or right to change the volume. Okay, and that's it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching and see you next time.
So just like you saw in the previous video, he's simply importing the files and dragging them over from the panel, from the project panel over into the timeline panel. So it's really that simple in regards to importing your video and your audio. Do you guys have any questions so far? No? Okay, we're gonna keep going. And please let me know if I'm going too fast because I can still slow it down for you guys. So importing images, and you'll see that the process is the same or quite similar. And they do have some shorthands and some shortcuts on how you can import your images just like your audio. And I just wanted to show you these videos because repetition will help you remember how to work in Adobe Premiere Pro. One second, there we go. Now, if you are dragging in images, it will show up on your timeline as a sequence, but it will show up as a smaller sequence. So what you can do is you can expand that image and by dragging the image all the way across your timeline to wherever and however long you would like it to show up. And this might work for you if you have an image that you would like to add some audio to, but you want the image to show a little longer than the standard. It would be best to drag drag it across and make the image show up longer. Okay, so we're going to move on to creating objects and shapes. This is something that you might want to incorporate into your video ad. There was a previous video showing you how to use the toolbar, and it showed you just a brief overview, but here's another video to give you some more information on how to create objects and shapes in Adobe Premiere Pro.
To get started, I just added a video clip to my timeline. Let's begin by going over to the graphics panel. To add a shape, click and hold on the pen tool to select either the rectangle or ellipse, then just drag where you want your shape. This will create a new graphics clip for your shape on the timeline. To make your shape unfilled, just check the fill over in the Essential Graphics panel, then check Stroke. You can increase the size of the stroke by dragging the number next to it. To change the color of your fill or stroke, just select the color box next to it. Now, while this works great, if you prefer, you can do this in the Editing tab. Just be sure to click it anywhere on the timeline, deselect the graphic so that when you draw a new shape, it'll create a new graphics clip for it. And to change its properties, you can just go over to the Effect Controls panel. Okay, and that's it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching.
So you can see that he switched over from the editing panel to the graphics panel. Now, when you switch over between the two, it depends on how your program opens. Sometimes, most times, it will open with the editing panel, the editing tab, and then sometimes it will open in graphics. So if you're having any issues or you're seeing maybe this toolbar is up here, you would definitely want to check to see which workspace you're in, just to see, okay, maybe I'm in the graphics workspace versus the editing, because the editing will allow you to do a little bit more versus your graphics. But again, your graphics workspace would allow you to do more in regards to text, in regards to changing your shapes and your objects. So pay attention when you're opening your program. It just depends on which is your default. Most times, again, it will open in the editing workspace, but sometimes it opens in graphics as well. So it's just something that you just have to pay attention to, but it's not hard to switch over. And once you switch over, you'll see all of the tools and panels that you'll need to import your video, images, and other things like that. So creating an adjustment layer. Just like if we were to work in Adobe Photoshop, you will see that there are different layers in regards to in Adobe Premiere Pro. When you are creating, dragging images and dragging your video and your audio, you'll see that it's looking like when it shows up on the timeline that they are in layers. So creating an adjustment layer will definitely help. Just like if you were to create a design in Adobe Photoshop, you want to have several separate layers, so that way you're not creating everything all on one layer. Because when it's time to make some edits, you don't have to start all over or go back and figure out how can I make these changes without undoing everything. So this is what this video is going to show you, how to create an adjustment layer.
To help you understand adjustment layers, let's say we have the scenario with 4 different clips that we want to add the same effect to. It's okay if you don't know how to add effects yet. This is a good thing to know before you start using them. So I'm going to add an effect by going over to the effects panel, and I'll drag my blur effect onto each clip manually. Then to make adjustments to my blur effect, I'll select my clip and go up to Effect Controls to increase its blur. But I want to blur all my clips, so I'd have to select each clip I added my effect to and repeat this process of going up to Effect Controls and increasing the blur. As you can see, this can get to be time consuming, especially if you have your footage already cut up into a million pieces from editing it. And things get even more complicated if I wanted to add my blur effect to only the first half of my first clip as well as the others. Then I'd have to make another cut and add my effect to that new cutout piece. In no time, your timeline will get really messy and your project will take 10 times longer to complete. But luckily, all these issues can be solved with adjustment layers, so I'm going to undo adding my blur effect to all my clips. Now to add an adjustment layer, I'm going to go back to the project panel. Then I'll right-click on the project panel, hover over New Item, and select Adjustment Layer. The default setting should match your timeline, so just hit OK. Now I'll drag my new adjustment layer from the project bin under the track above the clips I'd like to add my blur effect to. Then I'll drag my adjustment layer's end to change its duration to cover all the clips I want to add my blur effect to. And of course, you can drag your adjustment layer to reposition it over the clips you want. Now, whatever effect I add to this adjustment layer is going to also add the effect to any clips underneath it. So for example, I'll add my blur effect to the adjustment layer. Then with my adjustment layer selected, I'll go up to Effect Controls. And in here, I'll increase the blurriness of the effect on the adjustment layer. Okay, and now when I scrub through this, you can see that anything underneath my adjustment layer is blurred out. Notice how I can run my adjustment layer through the middle of a clip, and my blur effect will only start once the playhead gets to the adjustment layer. No need for adding my effect to a bunch of different cutout clips. I did it all with a single adjustment layer. With this adjustment layer, I could add multiple effects to it, or I could change or delete my effects without having to go in and edit each clip. The great thing about adjustment layers is that Premiere Pro lets you do a bunch of different things with them, like add animation and even color grade all on this single layer. One last thing to keep in mind is that if you have multiple clips underneath your adjustment layer, it will affect all of them. So yeah, adjustment layers are a pretty big deal if you want to save time and keep your workspace clean. Okay, and that's it for this lesson.
So adjustment layers are something that you might want to incorporate within your timeline. So again, you can make some changes, add effects without actually changing and affecting the actual video footage or the image that you import into your timeline. So we went over how to add text, but I just want to show you again. And then this is the first part, and the second part will show you a little bit more in depth on how to make your text look fancy.
To get started, I just added a video clip that I'd like to use as my background to my timeline. To add our text, let's begin by selecting the type tool on the side of our timeline. Then click anywhere in the video preview and start typing to add your text. Premiere will automatically create this pink clip for your text above your video clip on the timeline. You can drag the clip center to change where your text shows up in your video. You can also drag the edge of the text clip to adjust its duration. Now to change your text properties like its font, hover over your text and drag from the beginning or end of your text to select all of it. You can also just click your text with the type tool and use the Ctrl-A keyboard shortcut to select it all. Once it's selected, go over to Effect Controls. Under text, you can do things like change the font and its size. You can use these buttons to turn your text bold or italic. Under Appearance, you can change the color of your text by clicking the color box next to fill and selecting your desired color. To give your text a stroke, check the checkbox next to it and change the stroke color if you desire. To increase your stroke's width, just drag this number to the right. You can also easily give your text a background or a shadow by checking their boxes and adjusting a few settings. Under Transform, you can drag these position values to change where your text is located in the frame. Although I prefer to just use the selection tool and move it in the frame. One other thing you might want to do under Transform is to increase the text opacity to make it more transparent. Okay, and that's it for this tutorial. Thanks for watching and see you.
So in this tutorial, basically he was showing you how you can add basic text. Now he is working in the editing workspace. So the next video is going to show you how you can do more advanced text in the graphics panel. There we go. This is part 2. All right.
Well, if you go up here to the top in Premiere, you'll see this thing called Graphics, and that is the Graphics Workspace. You can also access the Essential Graphics panel by heading up to Window and then click Essential Graphics. At a basic level, the Essential Graphics panel is helpful when you are editing text. So if you click T on your keyboard and click anywhere in your program monitor and start typing away, you'll instantly notice that on the right-hand side, the Essential Graphics panel gives you a ton of options that you can use to adjust your text layer. For example, you can click and drag the X and Y values of your text to change the position. You can also double click on your text layer and adjust the font size as well as the font if needed. The Essential Graphics panel also has a Browse tab. If you scroll through here, you can see that we have everything from lower thirds to title cards to credit scenes, and it's quite a bit. So if you take your mouse and you hover over each graphic, you'll actually see that it will preview what that animation will look like. You can also use the slider here at the bottom to change the size of these templates if you want to see them a little bit bigger or smaller. And it should be noted that if you take your mouse and hover over the template, you can actually see the animation of what that will look like in your project. I would like to add a lower third in my project. Now, instead of creating the text and stuff myself, I'm going to find it over in the right-hand side in the Essential Graphics. So I'm going to scroll down through here, and I found this template called Bold Lower Third Left. All you have to do is when you find something that you like, simply click and drag this into your timeline. As soon as you drag it into your timeline, you can see that the animation is already applied, which is pretty cool. Now, if you select on that essential graphic, you'll see that it brings up the edit window on the right-hand side. In here, you can adjust the shapes, you can hide or unhide layers, and you can add layers if you would like. It's important to keep in mind that you can actually click on your text in the program monitor and directly manipulate it by clicking and dragging to adjust the scale, or double click to change the text as well. This is a quick and easy way to move your essential graphic around. To keep things simple, I'm just going to double click on the text layer and name this Kyler Holland, because that's my name. As you go down the edit page of the essential graphics, you can see that we can align and transform this anywhere we want. I'm a big fan of the align vertically and align horizontally buttons because it quickly and easily aligns it to the center of your clip. But for this example, I'm going to align this to the bottom and to the left, and then you can manipulate the X and Y coordinates to adjust the position of your lower third. But what if you don't like the font that you're using? Well, you can double click on your text layer and head down to text and select any font that you like. You can adjust the tracking of your font, and here's one thing to note. Whenever I am scaling up my text or adjusting the tracking, you'll notice that all of these shape layers are actually scaling with the text layer because they have responsive design. Responsive design is a way to attach layers to each other in a way that lets them scale responsively to new text, different frame sizes, and aspect ratios. So back on the text layer, we can see that we can adjust all these parameters. You can change the fill, you can add a stroke, you can do anything, but we're going to keep it pretty simple like that. And if you play this back, you'll instantly see that we have created a lower third in no time at all.
So I have another video. We won't have time for this live session. It is going to, included in this slide, but I'll also post it in the announcement section, which elaborates a little bit more on your central graphics panel. Some of the modes that you have available, which are just basically motion graphics that you can incorporate into your video ads. They just add some advanced text to your video ads, and they already come with animations. So that is something that you can include into your video ads just to spruce it up a little bit. So this is something that you might want to consider. Say, for instance, you have an image or a part of a video and you want to remove something from your video or your image. This is something that you might want to consider.
Today, you're going to learn how to remove unwanted objects from your videos in Adobe Premiere Pro. I use this effect all the time, whether it be to remove an ugly outlet from the wall or an accidental light stand in the corner. So, without further ado, let's begin. As you can see, I have this clip here of my cat, Cheryl, chilling on a scratch pad. And we have this ugly electrical outlet, which I would like to remove from the shot altogether. So first thing we want to do is drag the clip right onto the timeline. Let's just zoom in here so we can get a better look at what we're doing. And let's go ahead and hold down the Alt or Option button and click and drag a duplicate clip to the layer right above. Then let's select the top layer and move on up to Effect Controls. Click on the Free Draw Bezier tool right under the opacity options and move on over to your playback window. Here we can draw a small box, a little bigger than the object we'd like to remove, and then head over to motion and just slide the X and Y positions around so that the mask we just created is covering up the outlet completely. And since we're a little OCD, we can just micro adjust the corners here so that our mask is a perfect square. Once we're done, head over to the mask feather options and just increase the feather value until the mask is perfectly blended into the wall, making it completely unnoticeable. Now, if you look really closely, you can see the mask we made is a tiny bit lighter than the surrounding area of the wall. So what we can do to help blend this in a little better is move over to the color workspace. Here we can lower the exposure a tiny bit, play around with the shadows, and now you'll see the mask is far less noticeable. And when we play that all back, you'll see the outlet is now completely removed from the shot altogether.
So he also mentioned the color workspace. This is where you can make adjustments to your video. Say, for instance, you think your video or your images are a little dark. You can lighten them up or you can darken them, however, but play around with your workspaces because there's so much that you can do in Adobe Premiere Pro. So this is a quick video to show you how to create animated objects. And again, I'll have these resources available to you in the announcements.
To get things started, I added a background image and a GIF I'd like to move across the background to my timeline. You don't need to use a GIF for this tutorial, I just thought it would look nicer. Begin by selecting your image and going to the Effect Controls panel. Open up the motion area. Before continuing, make sure your marker is at the start of your clip. Now, I want my car to start off screen, so I'm going to change the horizontal position value. Click the keyframe timer to create your first keyframe. I'm going to drag my time marker to the end of the clip and then change the horizontal position of my car to the far right. This will automatically create an ending keyframe. Now, when I play back my video, I have a simple movement animation. While this works great, I'm going to show you a different way. I'm going to go ahead and move my car back onto the screen so you can see this better. Click on the keyframe timer once more to create a starting keyframe. Reposition your time marker for where you want your second animation to end. Double-click on your image and then drag it to where you'd like it to go. When you release, a new keyframe will be created. I'm going to do this one more time to create an additional keyframe animation. Now, when I play back my clip, I have a nice looking animation. And that's all there is to it. You now know how to do a simple movement animation in Premiere.
So that video showed you how to create animated objects. Again, Premiere Pro is very advanced. You can do so much in Adobe Premiere Pro. And I would like for you guys to explore yourself and get creative with your video ad. Now, in this video, he's going to show you an overview of how to create animated effects. And this was your effects panel that you saw that is located in your project panel. So I'm gonna go ahead and.
So in your effects panel, you have a few different folders: presets, Lumetri presets, then you have audio effects and transitions, and video effects and transitions. I will be going over presets, but we're going to save that for a later video once we've covered effects. And we're not going to be going over audio effects in this series. However, do know that you can have all these different audio effects that you can drag onto audio clips and edit the noise and distortion, things like that. But we're going to be focusing on the video effects, which you can find in this drop-down folder, which are in a variety of their own folders. And video transitions we'll cover as well in video near the end. So for example, how to apply effects. If I open up this blur folder and I choose something like directional blur, I can just click and drag this onto a clip and you should see the effect pop up by this little FX symbol, gets colored on. You can also see in the effects controls panel, this is the other most important panel. This is where we have all the controls for any effect. Now here's the directional blur that we just added, but you'll notice any clip, whether we have something on it or not, always has the motion effects on it. So the ability to adjust the position, scale, rotation, opacity, and masking. These are important to know because these are the properties of every clip. Additionally, next to almost every parameter, you have this little stopwatch icon, which allows us to adjust the animation of any of these parameters or controls with keyframes. So keyframes are another important thing. Normally, if you just add an effect on there, like directional blur, you can just add the effect, but it'll be the same throughout the whole clip. If I want to change from one point to the other, this is where you add keyframes. So by toggling that stopwatch icon for animation, you'll see this diamond keyframe appear. And by moving it to different positions on the timeline and adjusting 2 points of control, you'll see it go from the first keyframe to the second keyframe gradually. So in this case, blurred to not blurred slowly. That's a basic example, but you can add more keyframes and combine them to the point where really the possibilities are endless. And that's kind of where presets come in, is taking these effects, saving the keyframes and adjustments that you make with them in combinations so that you can create your own effects with them. So we'll touch more on presets in a later video once we go through more of the effects. Also notice that whenever you want, you can delete things from the effect controls. So I can delete individual presets. You can also toggle the visibility of them, so hiding or not hiding them, the same way that you can on a track, toggling the visibility of the entire tracks or not. Or you can also right-click a clip and remove attributes and choose exactly which ones. So everything about the motion, opacity, or even all the effects or certain effects. So I can remove all of them. You'll see that light gets turned off from the FX symbol. Another way that you can apply effects is not only just on the clip, but on an adjustment layer. So if I highlight my project media bin, go to File, New Adjustment Layer, you should see a new adjustment layer pop up in your media bin, and you can click and drag this on a track above any track. So if I was to apply this blur on the adjustment layer, now we have the same thing going on, except I can stretch out the adjustment layer over as long as I want, and I don't have to apply the effect onto each clip. Adjustment layers do act a little bit differently than clips. For example, lowering the scale of the adjustment layer does just that and doesn't lower the scale of the clip underneath it. So there's some cases where certain effects act differently applied directly on a clip versus an adjustment layer. Another way to apply effects is master. So right now we're on this exact clip, but if I click this other tab here, master, and I apply a blur onto the master effect, you should see that it'll apply to every instance of this clip. So now even if I were to drag the clip out from the project media bin again, you'll see it's automatically blurred. You can see that's denoted by a red line. So more of these symbols that you can read. So one thing to keep in mind throughout this entire playlist is there's usually more than one way to achieve the same thing. There's just different routes and flexible options you can take. In the next video.
All right, so you can also play around with the effects panel. Again, he adjusted his workspace to where he moved his effects panel off to the right versus within the project panel. But you can adjust and move everything around as regards to like your workspace in Adobe Premiere Pro. It's really just your preference. Now this video, one where she elaborates a little bit more about the lower thirds, which are the animated text, the motion graphics that are already there for you in the essential graphics panel. We won't have time to go over this video, but I will leave this video in the resources post and the announcements. That way, if you want to add some animated text, you can do that and she'll explain a little bit more. So I would like for you to let me know what's your biggest takeaway. And so you can just go ahead and drop it in the chat just so I can know that you kind of paid attention watching some of the videos. And you can tell me like which video interests you the most, or something that you are excited to incorporate in your own video ad. All right, so importing music and audio and images, you can edit, add some effects. You're gonna have fun playing in Adobe Premiere Pro. I know that importing images, clips, hiding objects. Yes, hiding objects is something that very similar to Adobe Photoshop, some things that you can do. Although the tools are named differently, you can use the information that you learned in all of the Adobe applications prior to, and really incorporate into Adobe Premiere Pro. Again, the names may be different, but the purpose of the tools are kind of similar. So you'll see, you'll find a way to get comfortable in using some of the Adobe applications. Shapes and objects, okay. All right. So for this week, you're going to create a 20-second video ad for your event. So you're going to establish mood, the energy of your event, and how you want it to appeal to your target audience. You're going to include typography, images, video footage, and motion effects. And then once you're done, you're going to export your video, and you're going to export it as an MP4 file, and then you're going to send it over to me. So here's just some things to consider. If you're looking for some stock images, you can definitely use Adobe Stock, pixels.com. I'll also put some more references in the announcement section, so you can go and download some of those stock images, also some royalty-free music. And then you'll also have a step-by-step video tutorial by Cameron that you've seen him help you create some of your marketing material throughout the prior weeks. So he also has a step-by-step video on how he will create his own events video ad. So do you guys have any questions? No? Okay, well, I don't want to hold you. I know this was a long session, but I'll see you guys a little bit later. And if you do have any questions, you can stay back, and I'm happy to help you and assist you with anything that you may have, any questions or concerns. All right. All right, so this live session, once the recording is over, you'll be able to access this underneath the web meeting. So I'll see you guys a little bit later on today. All right then, bye.